Nice buns, soft, fluffy, and ultra-low net carbs. Discover Hero Bread, the delicious, ultra-low net carb bread with incredible taste and texture. Hero Bread has 0 grams of sugar and is under 100 calories per serving. Plus, high in fiber with 5 to 10 grams of protein per serving. Order from hero.co now and get 10% off your first purchase with promo code AH10. That's 10% off with code AH10. HERO.co.
Hello, I'm Wendy, and this is Wendy's Coffee House, a home for the curious. I cover all sorts of topics, whether it's OBE, paranormal, NDE, but for the most part, my focus is the unexplained and the anomalous, because those are my experiences, and it hasn't always been easy for me to talk about that. That's where we're going, basically down the rabbit hole, because now more people are having these experiences, and the more we compare notes, the more we have to evolve our own abilities, and miracles happen. Believe it or not, it doesn't keep them from happening. And that's what I like about this reality. So down the rabbit hole we go. With the present focus and interest in UFOs and the okay to talk about it from the U.S. government, that's been happening all along, and the last source for information, legit information on UFOs or UFO contact has been the U.S. government. Not a complaint, a reality. Now it has shifted and saying, we can talk about it because it has been validated and acknowledged. Some people had been severely punished, threatened, and intimidated not to disclose information for the last several decades. And that has shifted. Thanks to Tom DeLonge, by the way. There is a whole new attitude and a refresh with this topic. I'm going back into the archives, and I have been publishing information from John Foster, who's still at 84, 85 this fall, insists that what he has experienced is continuing, ongoing in the background, and most of us are unaware because in many ways it is shielded, and only certain people are connected, contacted, enlightened as to this activity. The fascinating thing is the stuff that he talks about being present when other people are pretty much shut down, frozen in stasis as he experiences whatever event is ongoing. That's phenomenal to have that information and to have his context, because as an engineer with background in physics, nuclear engineering, involved in projects on site dealing with nuclear energy. That's a huge connection to some of the other guys who have witnessed the shutdowns at nuclear energy facilities when UFOs were present. So, in my opinion, John's information is valid. It really connects us to that other element of the energy interference that they cause. Electrical interference, also, vehicles shut down, house lights turn off, watches, all those kinds of things are impacted, influenced, oftentimes with the presence of UFOs or ETs. I think they're transdimensionals. I don't believe that they're extraterrestrial, but there may be variations, and some are, some aren't. But what has happened when people describe the entrance, and when I have seen this, they go through walls. In my own house, a UFO appeared. This is one of those small drone-type UFOs. I only saw, it would appear to have been the bottom, and it was faced toward me. So I saw the lights that were green and red, and it was about the size of a dinner plate, maybe 13 inches, so a little bit larger, but just under the ceiling, about 6 inches hovering above the ceiling or below the ceiling. I was only aware of it for a few seconds because the dog had growled, and I thought he was growling at the cat. But when I opened my eyes and just partially, not fully awake, partially just to spy on him without knowing, then I saw this lighted thing. Okay, I know this is a moment I've got to figure out how to basically fathom what's happening. And as I tried to focus on it, it shifted. It went through the window, my way of describing it, dissolved and reappeared through the window with no noise, completely silent. And I could see it through the mini blinds. I could still see that green illumination through the mini blinds. I knew there was no way that I was going to be able to photograph this thing. I did my best to cement my memory. But at the same time, it's fuzzy because when you are exposed to something for the very first time, your brain goes into hyperdrive and trying to factor all sorts of things into the equation without having any context for it. So going back and re-examining it and trying to figure out, okay, what was it? And then our language changes. So now we're saying things like drone. At that time, drone wasn't a common phrase. We also were saying orb. Well, this wasn't an orb. This looked like it was something mechanical because those lights, about 3 inches each of them, and they look the clear bulb like a Christmas bulb and round. So these, and I called it the Christmas tree UFO because the lights were red and green, and maybe 14 to 16 lights in that pattern. But again, it wasn't there long enough for me to really get a full picture, and I don't have a photographic memory. So this is the problem when you're talking about contact and sightings. It's a shock to the system to see something you're not familiar with in a place you don't expect it when you are not fully conscious. However, because I wasn't fully conscious, I was able to at least glimpse it because it seemed to think I was asleep. and when it realized I wasn't asleep and I was homing in, trying to focus on it and trying to put that pattern, burn it into my mind, that's when it shifted and went outside. I thought it was interesting that it stayed outside the window. I thought, well, that's a tease. I have no idea what the reasoning was on that, but possibly allowing me to register and say, yes, that was real. We're still here. And guess what? We went through the wall. Aren't we fun? So these kinds of things now are okay to talk about. And I'm continuing to publish John's information on my website and my blogs. That's Wendy's Coffee House is the website.com. The blog is Talking to Nightlights at WordPress, and that's also talkingtonightlights.com. Because my experiencing things where I go into that I talked about earlier and wrote about it, the church in New Mexico, the image in the painting, Jesus Christ, became holographic. And that hologram appeared to me as he came out of the picture and shifted and turned around. And so my experiences with reality also include shifting timelines and shifting awareness and seeing things in 3D, which is, let's say, unusual. Not everyone has these kinds of experiences. And so when I talk about it, in some places and some ways, I have to be careful because there's a tune-out factor of, oh, that's impossible. A lot of impossible things happen. And so this is just another thing that's impossible, but incredibly fascinating to me and interesting because just because everyone doesn't have the same experience, light bulb, that's a clue. We don't all have the same experiences. But by comparing notes with people who do have anomalous experiences, we can each become more aware of the potential and possibilities in our reality that are fresh, current, and encouraging us to expand our psychic PSI experiences beyond the 5 senses and to include something that's very normal and natural, which is our 6th sense ability. So in that regard, I like to include stories from people who've had anomalous experiences because they help broaden our range and our awareness. And each time you hear about something that goes beyond the pale that says, oh my gosh, that's outstanding, whether it's a near-death experience, whether it's an out-of-body experience, which I've had several interviews with people who are experts in out-of-body experiences and teaching out-of-body experiences, William Buhlman. I finally decided to take one of his classes because, well, with COVID, people shut down their on-site engagements and events and started to expand their programs to include off-site and remote learning. So since I can't do as much traveling as I like because I work and my vacation time is limited. Anyway, that it gave me opportunities to experience more of these things doing it remote, and I appreciate that. So with, again, going back to the topic of including more content that relates to the current framework that it's okay to talk about UFOs. UFOs also include elements that are paranormal. And that's where finally the groups are converging. An experience I have had includes what you would call a screen and a screen memory. This is with my cat. I walked from one part of the house to the other, and it's only, 20 steps. So I'm passing a room, looking toward the room where the cat was seated on the chair and looking at me. And I'm thinking, I have to take her picture. She was very photogenic. I loved her, Chloe. She was a calico. And so I see this collar. The collar is green with a pink heart on it. And I'm thinking, that's just a fantastic photo. I've got to go get the camera. So I'm walking to the next room thinking about this and realizing as I'm thinking to get the camera, about 10, 15 steps, I don't have a cat who wears a green and pink collar. Chloe, that's not the cat. And so I'm like, what the heck did I just see? I go back immediately without the camera and find Chloe sitting in the chair, not on the back of the chair. And there's no way she could sit at that height on the back of the chair that was about 4 feet tall. And there's Chloe just fine in the chair. Chloe has never worn a collar. As a matter of fact, she threw hissy fits when I tried to put collars on her. I got 2 or 3 very cute collars. She went in the basement and ditched them. So that was the thing about Chloe that made this whole thing impossible. And yet I saw it. I experienced it. And I realize when I try and go back to that memory, it's almost like a Cheshire cat with a smile. It's a screen memory. What was standing there? That's the question. What was standing there that gave me that image so that I wouldn't see the actual presence of the moment? These are things that happen that are experiences we can't quantify, qualify, and in some way prove because they're personal and we don't have a second witness. John Foster's experiences that he writes about, he shares, he remembers, had witnesses. Because of his age, many of those witnesses are deceased. However, it has been documented, and he did interviews prior. He started his interviews in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and that helps us to give some kind of a template, a timeline for his experiences. Anyway, I just wanted to go into that in depth to say these are the things that I have tried to focus on because I believe it helps us broaden our horizons and encourages us to educate and inform ourselves on the other possibilities that happen to be related and tied into the UFO arena. There's more going on than just UFOs. There's more going on than just paranormal. There's more going on with the authorities who determine whether or not these events are legit. And that's where we're growing. We're evolving. This is a heads up on some of the interviews coming up. They're from the archives of Conscious Living when I did that on Empower Radio. There's still some excellent content and anomalous experiences. That's what I'm focused on. Enrique Villanueva is an experiencer, and his interview is posting. Also, Raj Sharma. I went back into the archives because these were some of the most outstanding shows on this anomalous experience of whether it's an immortal, which is Raj Sharma's experience, and that's the best term I can use, and then Enrique, who has a UFO contact experience. So that'll be included along with the present-day podcast guests. I just wanted to get back from the archives the content that is relevant to what we're experiencing right now, because this has been ongoing. It isn't new. It's just more acceptable to talk about it without getting slammed or ridiculed. Okay, a quick example with Raj Sharma, who experienced something that we would call possibly an immortal. But this being appeared to him and said, "You'll be questioning this the rest of your life." This show is from the archives of conscious living. You can listen to it in an upcoming post. I also have other guests from present day, but I wanted to give you a heads up as so many more people are going down the rabbit hole and having these outstanding, amazing, anomalous encounters with stuff we are still trying to explain with our science. Welcome to the next phase of the New Age. Timeline shifts, interdimensional presences, UFO sightings, and holographic 3D encounters. It gives reality a whole new spin. So let's explore a little bit more down the rabbit hole. On all of the shows, I try to include links in the description for the show. So if you're interested, you can follow up with those links. My blog, again, is Talking to Nightlights on WordPress, talkingtonightlights.com. And this is Wendy's Coffee House, a home for the curious. Thanks for listening.